If someone ever asks me, what is your favorite time of year? It is always this time of year. We have Preptober coming up. We have spooky season. It's fall, so it's finally going to start cooling off here in Texas. And then, of course, we have November, where we have the amazing gift and opportunity to come together as a community with our fellow writers and creatives and fully focus in on our creative work. I love this time of year and I'm looking forward to this more than I think I ever have. So if you are with me and you want to join me in the Rough Draft Challenge and Preptober and getting excited for this season, let's get started. Hello, my favorite writing friends. I am so pumped. I am feeling really excited to have the opportunity to prep as well as to immerse in my story world. I feel like there's always so much good energy around this time of year for those of us who are in community as creative people. And I just feel like it's such a gift. So thank you for being here. I have a gift for you as well, which is the annual Preptober Rough Draft Challenge Planner. So this is over 100 pages of prep, but also a daily planner that you can use to get yourself all the way through your creative project in the month of November. So we're going to flip through this entire thing today. We're going to talk about how to set up a sustainable goal for the month of November. And we're going to talk about what is Preptober, as well as how do you join the Rough Draft Challenge. So I cannot wait to dive into this. If you do not have a copy of this yet, it's totally free to download. All you have to do is sign up for my newsletter. The link is in the description, the very first link for you. When you confirm your email, I will send you a link to my Heart Breathing's resource library, which is filled with dozens of free planners and workbooks about how to plot your novel, how to edit your novel, how to write great scenes, how to come up with ideas, how to manage your energy, how to find your ideal writing sprint time. There's tons of great stuff in there that I've created over the years, and it's all free for you to use. Just look for the folder at the top called Rough Draft Challenge, and you will find multiple versions of this. And if you are already on my list, you will find a fresh link in your email today for how to download this. So there are 4 versions. Really, there's 6 versions in that folder. One is this printable that I have for you here. This is actually printed at 82% to fit into my sort of classic Happy Planner size, but it's typically letter size. And it comes in a Monday start version as well as a mixed start version where you have a Sunday calendar for the month and then all the weeks start on Mondays. Then besides just the printable PDF, there's also a digital version that is hyperlinked for you that you can use for the same 2 versions, like in GoodNotes or Zoto or something like that. Then there's also an undated version. So if you happen upon this in a month that isn't prepping for November, you can grab it and use it for any month and make any month your Rough Draft Challenge. So I'm so excited to flip through this today. We're going to go through every single page. It's probably going to be a longer video. So go ahead, pause, print this out if you'd like so you can fill it out while we go along, grab a beverage, and come hang out with me as we prep for November's Rough Draft Challenge. So if you are new here or you're not a writer who has participated in this kind of challenge before, you might be saying, what in the world is Preptober? Well, starting with that, Preptober is just the loving name that we have given to the month of October every year as we prep to focus in on our writing projects in the month of November. Now, in previous years, I think for 16 years of my life, that November writing challenge was called National Novel Writing Month, or you may have heard NaNoWriMo. That organization has sadly folded, but the spirit of focusing in on our work, being creative, and getting into community lives on here at Heart Breathings, and I know in many other communities online. So you are welcome to come join us for this. So in the month of November, the Rough Draft Challenge is similar to the NaNoWriMo Challenge, where you were tasked with writing 50,000 words of a brand new rough draft project in the month of November. We're kind of tossing out some of those specific rules about 50,000 words, and we have created our own tiers of challenge because frankly, 50,000 words doesn't work for everyone's writing process, nor everyone's writing speed. Some people might be editing this month. Some people might edit as you go. Some people might just be slower writers. And I feel like that 50,000 word goal, though challenging and exciting, also eliminated the possibility of participating for a lot of people. So we have slightly different tiers here. We have the Emerald tier at 10,000 words. Sapphire tier is aiming for 25K. Ruby tier is that familiar NaNoWriMo tier of 50,000. Citrine, which is new this year, is 75,000. Amethyst is if you really want to go like 100,000 words plus in the month. But then there's also the Diamond Challenge. And this is where anyone who is not actually a writer can join us in the challenge. But you could also use this to create any challenge you want. So Diamond is just create your own rules. It could be number of blog posts you want to write. It could be editing. It could be the number of hours you want to spend or minutes you want to spend writing. It could be creative art projects like painting or crochet or needlepoint. It could be literally anything you want. You could use it to declutter your house. But anyway, you can choose any tier you want. If you have a goal that's, let's say, in between 25 and 50, you have a 35,000 word goal, you can either just go for the Sapphire goal and then go beyond it, or you can call that a Diamond Challenge and say it's 35,000. In terms of how to join, there is a link in here to the Rough Draft Challenge website, which is roughdraftchallenge.com. This is a very minimal site that my husband George created for us. And in fact, because we are starting Preptober so early, which by the way, it's usually all decorated for spooky season. And I am starting so early, I didn't even have time to decorate for spooky season. Have this one little like skeletal hand over here we'll set on the side. But because we're starting early, you actually can't sign up yet for your November project. So I will remind you of that in next week's video because you can only set up this month or next month. So right now, as I'm recording this video, this month is September and next month is October. But it's a very simple site. It doesn't cost anything for you to join, and you don't even have to officially join us to participate. But if you want to join us, I would love to know what your tier that you're heading for is, as well as what you're working on. What's your project? I will talk about my project later because I'm actually not sure which book in the series, but I know that I'm going to be working on my series, The Shadow Games. It's just how far will I get before November? We shall see. But what we're going to do right now is we're going to go through every page of this, and I'm going to help you figure out what your goal should be in order to make it feel both exciting and motivating, but also achievable and realistic. Because the truth is, we're all motivated differently. Some people are motivated by a really stretched challenge like competition or hitting a goal that feels impossible. That can be super motivating for some people, and it can be extremely paralyzing for others. And it's really just a matter of not judging yourself for which way you get motivated and instead working with yourself to create a goal that feels sustainable and true. So the first real spread in the planner is the noveling checklist. And this goes through all the things that you want to think about when you're prepping to create your plan, your tools, like what software and what computer you're going to use, your community or your writing crew, your novel, like are you going to color code, outline, prep with index cards? We're going to talk about this more throughout the month of October. So if you are not subscribed, definitely hit the subscribe button because I've got tons of fun Preptober videos for you, as well as I think 5 full years of Preptober playlists that I would love for you to dig around in. Just head to the playlist tab on my channel and you will find Preptober playlists from 2020. Prep your space. I went through each of the items on this checklist in my last video. So I will link that down below or put it up in a card here if you want to click that. The next page is a to-do list. So this is basically just a list of all the things you want to do to get prepped. Anything you might want to buy can go on the shopping list. Any decisions that you might want to make are over here. And then any research, planning, prep, outlining, index cards, anything else you want to do, you can sort of have this be your dashboard for that prep. Then we get into what I basically call challenge math. Like I said, previous NaNoWriMo event was 50K. Camp Nano was different. You could set your own goal, but to win in November was always 50K. And while that was motivating and fun to reach for a pie in the sky goal, it's not always possible for everybody to write that fast. And then so many of us would get a really great start and then end up midway through the month feeling burned out, or actually finishing the 50K in the month and then not touching that book again for 6 months because you were so burned out. And so what I really want to do with the Rough Draft Challenge is create a challenge where you feel free to make the kind of goal that will allow you to feel motivated, but also won't push you past a point that feels unhealthy. So here's how we figure that out. First, you have the November monthly spread. This is where we're going to start to look at how many days are you actually going to write in the month of November? Because it's one thing to say, oh, 30,000 words in the month, there's 30 days, I'll just write 1,000 words a day, but not taking into consideration that you get chronic headaches, or you always have a couple of days a month where you don't feel like writing, or something else comes up, or you have sick kids or whatever. And then you might have birthday parties or travel or Thanksgiving Day or something else that comes up that you hadn't planned on. So even if you did your 1,000 words a day most of the month, you would still technically lose the challenge because you didn't account for days when you wouldn't be writing. So that's what we do here. We basically, I'm just going to take a red pen. We basically look at the month, and the first step is to mark off any days in the month of November that you're not going to be writing. This is a Sunday start, but the Monday start has a monthly calendar here. So let's say I know I'm giving a presentation on the 15th. I won't be able to write that day. We have, I think Thanksgiving is the 27th this year, so I probably won't write either of those 2 days. So that's at least 3 days I know I'm not going to be writing. If this year's anything like last year, I probably also will have a sick 6-year-old in my house at least a day or two. I don't know when that's going to happen, obviously, but I'm just going to go ahead and mark off a day for that just to give myself buffer. So those are the responsibilities you have. Next, choose whether you want to add in any buffer days. So this is for people who sometimes run out of spoons, and you just have days where you can't show up at peak energy or any energy for writing at all. Those of us that have chronic illnesses, or you just know that typically you have a couple of meh days where you don't feel inspired, or in your previous attempts at writing, you know that you will need a couple of days within this month to reevaluate your plot, or to do a little bit of outlining, or to figure out what happens next, because you typically get stuck every different act or something. How many buffer days do you want to build in so that you can create a sustainable goal for yourself? I am going to build in an additional 2 buffer days. You don't have to mark them off on the calendar. Obviously, it's not going to be the first, second, and third, but this just visually gives me an idea. Then you're going to tally up your total days off and subtract it from 30. So there's 30 days in the month of November. And I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 days that I won't be writing on average. It might end up that I can write some of these days. Maybe Evie doesn't get sick. That would be super great, knock on wood. But maybe there's other days that I might need off. So this is just an estimate. It's not going to be perfect. None of us have a crystal ball where we can predict the future. We're just trying to create something that feels both motivating and achievable. So let's say I have 24 writing days in the month of November, not 30. That gives me a better sense of how much writing time I actually have. So if I knew I want to aim for about 1,000 words a day, then I could take this 24 and say, well, since there's a sapphire tier, I'm going to go for that. And 25,000 feels sustainable. I can write 1,000 words on 24 days, and then hopefully have a couple days where I write a little extra. Another thing you could do is, if you were already starting with a writing goal, let's say Nano has trained you well and you want to still go for that 50,000 because you don't feel like anything less is a win. So you've got the 50,000. Now what you would do is you would take those 24 writing days and you would say 50,000 divided by 24, and you would come up with 2,084, basically 2,084 words that you need per day on these 24 days. And you can just do a gut check on that. How likely are you in the month of November to write just over 2,000 words a day? Is that sustainable for you? Have you ever done it before? Do you feel excited when you think about that as a daily goal? Or does it make you feel like, oh, I know I can't do that, but I really want to set this goal? I would encourage you to check in with how it really makes you feel, to think of writing whatever that number is that your calculator gives you. So let's say you thought, oh, that 75,000 citrine goal sounds really fun. And you've got, let's say, 22 writing days for the month. If you take 75,000 as a goal, divide it by 22 days, you would get 3,409. So you could bring that up to say, I need to write about 3,500 words a day. If that is a couple of good hours for you, then it might be possible. But if you write typically 200, 300 words an hour, this is probably going to send you over the edge because you would need to be writing for 10 hours a day to have any hope of hitting that goal. And that just isn't sustainable. So take a look at the numbers a couple of different ways. So this is the first step of the process. Another way to start looking through this is to think about sprints. So if you have never done a writing sprint before, this is something I love and actually was something I learned through attending NaNoWriMo write-ins back in 2007, 2008, I think. We would get together in person and somebody would set a timer. Everyone would get quiet and write for 20 minutes or 25 minutes. And then everybody would report their word count and it would be like a little competition and challenge. And for some people, competition is highly motivating. And for others, it's not. So I really want you, as you work through your own plan, to think about what motivates me and then lean into that as much as possible. And instead of judging yourself, allow yourself to really just go all in on the things that work for you as an individual. But anyway, I have this little cube timer. You can set a Pomodoro timer on the internet. I will link some of my favorite ones down below, and you can choose any time frame you want. So I have a 25, 15, or 40-minute timer on here with a 5-minute break timer. I tend to like 25-minute sprints, but if you have never done sprints where you basically turn off your phone, turn off all distractions, and you just write as much as you can in that time until it goes off. If you've never done that before, try it, see if it works for you. Not everybody can write well in sprints because for some people, once the timer goes off, they feel like they've lost their train of thought or their flow. And some people just need that uninterrupted long 2-hour session to write as much as they can. Other people like me, if I just have 2 hours of writing, I'm going to start getting really distracted and tired about 30 minutes in, and my brain is going to start going off on a bunch of different directions. And so in 2 hours, I might get 1,000 words. Whereas if I set a timer for 25 minutes and I'm in flow, I can write 1,000 words in 30 minutes. And so for me, it is a focus tool. If you want to try it, there is a word sprint challenge workbook inside the resource library that you can try out to see what times of sprints, like what intervals you prefer, what time of day works best for you, that all that kind of stuff. We also have a Heart Breathing's writing community here on YouTube and on Facebook where we are doing writing sprints across multiple different YouTube channels every single day. And we probably will be doing more in the month of November than normal. So come join those. I will link the Google Calendar down below, but it also is linked for you here inside the planner as well as the Facebook group, which is almost 9,000 people strong. And thank you, of course, to all of our hosts who run those writing sprints. And you can still join in even if you miss it live. You can join on the replays and things like that. But if you want to try sprints, here's something else that you can do to help you with the math portion of this. So you can figure out what's your preferred sprint length. Like I said, for me, it's 25 minutes with a 5-minute break. So I'm going to say 30 minutes to do a full sprint cycle. And then what is your average word count per sprint? This is basically like a word problem from high school. Your average word count per sprint. If you don't know it, all you have to do is say, okay, I'm going to write for the next 2 hours and I'm going to take 25 minutes 4 times and write. Record your word count, all of those 4 times, and then take the total word count and divide it by 4. That's going to give you your average word count. If your top word count was 300, but your average was 200, don't go by the top, because when we plan for peak performance every single time, we are setting ourselves up for disappointment. Plan for your average so that even if you have bad sprints, then you will balance it out with the good ones and you're planning more realistically. So let's say your average word count per sprint is 500. And I'm just using that as an easy math number, not as a judgment. Some people write much faster, some people write much slower, and you just are who you are. Every writer has their challenges and every writer has their strengths. So don't judge what this number is for you. Then you can figure out how many sprints do you need per day to hit your goal. So if your word count target that we had up here when we said it was going to be about 1,000 words per day, then we have the average word count per sprint is 500. That's pretty easy math because we can say, well, I need 2 sprints per day, which is 1 hour because they're each 30 minutes. If, however, like I said before, you had a 75,000 word goal and 22 days to write, you have a 3409. I'm just going to write this over here on the side. This is your goal every day is 3409. Let's say you write 500 words per minute. You would take that 3409 divided by your 500 words, and you would basically get that you need to do 7 sprints a day on average to hit that goal every day. So 7 sprints is basically, if we say you've got to an hour. 7 sprints means you need 3.5 dedicated hours of writing every single day. For some of you, no problem. For some people, that just there is no literal feasible way that you could fit in 3.5 hours. So just the reason that I have these sheets here for you is so that you can look at it and set yourself up ahead of time as you prep with a goal that feels actually achievable, because so many people would end up with that 50K goal for nano and think that there's something wrong with them for not hitting that goal. When if you looked at it in terms of the number of hours per day you would have had to have write to hit that goal, you would see that it was never achievable. So it wasn't your fault, or it wasn't something you did wrong or some flaw that you have. It's just simply that you don't have the time for that. Not all of us do. And I think that that is, one of the things about the 50,000 word goal that was so difficult for so many of us, was just that idea of, I should be a faster writer. It sort of elevated that idea of speed. And while there is definitely some benefit to writing quickly and taking off the internal editor for a while and just allowing yourself to get into flow, I think that just not everybody has that process. So we're doing something different. Okay, challenge math example. This is another way to kind of look through it. And I love this sheet as much as I don't love math. I love this sheet. So here's an example, right? You've got your total word count goal. The number of days gives you your total daily target. The daily target divided by your average sprint gives you this many sprints. Then you multiply that times your ideal writing sprint time. Mine's 30, but maybe yours is 15. And that gives you the number of minutes you need to write per day. And then you can see whether that's achievable for you. And then also at the bottom, you have another one to take your word count goal divided by your average sprint, which will tell you how many sprints you need throughout the month. Because here's the other piece of it when you're planning is we like to say, okay, let me write 2,500 words a day. But the truth is you might be able to do that on a Saturday, but not on a Wednesday, because Wednesday might be ballet class or school, or you might work 5 days a week and have weekends off. So you could write 3 times the words on the weekends. So we don't always have that, like, this is the same amount every day kind of thing. Some of you are going to spend the first week planning anyway, or something along those lines. So having this total number of sprints needed to win can sometimes be really helpful, because you might do 5 sprints on a normal day and then 10 sprints on a weekend. So it helps you kind of keep that idea in your head. There's also, we'll go over this in a minute, but the back of the planner has this word count tracker that you can keep track of how many sprints. And so if you needed 112, you could highlight this, and just every day as you get a little closer to it, as you fill this out, I'm that much closer to winning this challenge. So let's go through it in this challenge math calculator. Let's say the total challenge word count goal is 25,000. So you're going for that sapphire tier. You have 24 days of writing this month, which means you need to get just over 1,000 words a day. So you're at 1,042 words a day on average that you need. So you pull that word count down to this next section and you say average word count per sprint. Let's say for this person, it's 350 words per sprint. So you would take 1,042 divided by 350 words, means that you need 3 sprints per day to win. So number of sprints per day, 3 times, let's say, we'll just stick with the 30 minutes, gives me 90 minutes of writing time. So that means as I'm planning and prepping my schedule for the rough draft challenge, I know I need to try to find an hour and a half a day, or some combination of that time. Another way that you could do this, if you knew you had a variable amount of time per day, is you could figure out how much time do I need throughout the entire challenge. So you could do it here, or you could do it down here. So let's say your total word count goal again is 25,000 and your average words per sprint is 350. That means that in order to win, you need about 72 sprints. So you could come over to that word sprint challenge, find the 72 and highlight it. And as long as you put in the time to do 72 sprints, whether it's a lot in one day or variable per day, you know that you've got this down. So you could take that 72 That's 72 sprints times 30 minutes a sprint. And you could say, I need 2,160 minutes, or divide that by 60 minutes and say, I need 36 hours. Or if you're at 30 minutes, you could just have said 72 divided by 2 gives you 36 hours. So you could set a diamond challenge for yourself, or you could just kind of look at your overall monthly schedule and say, do I have 36 hours in this month, or is that not sustainable? So if you're looking at every day, say if I get up a little bit early in the morning, or if I take that hour after dinner every night, I've got plenty of time. So this is just multiple ways to look at it to set yourself up for success. And that is the most labor intensive part of the math prep. I also have for you on the next page a rewards planner. And this is different. I just redesigned this page. So one of the things that can be motivating for some people is fun rewards along the way. And you can set this up however you would like. So if you've got a 50,000 word goal, you could set the milestones at every 10K, 10, 20, 30, 40, and then a bigger reward maybe at the 50. You could also stair step these by saying, okay, the first milestone is going to be the first 1,000 words. The next one's going to be the next 5,000 words, then 10,000 words, then 20,000 words. You could do it however you want to do it. So also, you don't have to set rewards. Some people are more motivated by the challenge or by the competition of it than rewards. So if you're motivated by competition more, then you might want to find an accountability partner either here in the writing community or a friend that you have and set some kind of competition. Okay, let's see who can write the most words this month and just go for it. But just think about how and what motivates you. Rewards can be simple, they can be really cheap, they can be no cost at all, they can be experiences, or they can be physical things. So for me, I love little blind boxes like this. I have tons of these Tokidoki figurines. I love Hello Kitty stuff. I love colored markers. So I know that something like this is going to motivate me, but it doesn't cost a ton of money. So you can put in the milestone. So let's say I was going to set this as my 10,000 words milestone. When I hit that, I get this reward. So you can use the reward boxes to describe what you're going to get. And it can be something you go out and buy first so that they're all lined up and you can see them and that makes you feel motivated. Or it can be something that you will, like you could put $10 in the pot every single time so that you can say, okay, when I hit this, I am finally going to go buy that and I'm going to save up for it throughout the month. When you hit it, you can mark it off or color it in, and you can say how much it costs over here. And you can continue to fill this out and really reward yourself for everything that you're doing. I have not picked out all of my rewards yet, but I do know this Tokidoki box will be one of them. Okay, so next we have a meal planner. Again, don't think of anything in this planner or this video as something that is required. What I really want and encourage is for you to just get in a mindset of, this is a big toolbox. Which tools do I want to use? Which tools work for me and which ones don't? There's no requirement to do all of these things. But one thing that I learned a very long time ago is that I have a limited amount of decision-making ability, executive function. And if I spend it all of my decision-making creative ability on what I'm going to wear and what I'm going to eat, I have none left for deciding what my characters are going to do, what I'm going to write in the next scene, what the dialogue is. And I need every ounce of my executive function and creative energy to be spent on the books, especially when I have a month like the Rough Draft Challenge where I'm going to be all in focused on my work. So I want to eliminate as many of those other little decisions that aren't as important throughout the day. So one of them is I set a uniform for myself. My uniform this year is basically just going to be black yoga pants and a black tank top or t-shirt, or maybe like I have some merch coming for the Rough Draft Challenge. So I'm going to order a few of those t-shirts. I will post those as soon as they're ready. And it's just going to be that. And you'll see me wearing that a ton during the Rough Draft Diaries coming up in November. And I am just going to take those 7 pairs of yoga pants that I already have, and I'm going to put them in a pile, like in a stack, and I'm just going to pull off that pile. No thought having to think through. The only times I will have to think through what I'm wearing is if I'm going to church or I'm going to an event for the kids' school. But otherwise, I'm going to wear that same thing every day as much as possible so that I can eliminate that decision. And the same is true for my meals. So I have this monthly meal planner available for you where you can write down a few ideas for breakfast, a few ideas for lunch, a few snack ideas, and a few dinner ideas. And then as you get into the monthly planner, the weekly planner, there's a spot for you to put what you're eating: breakfast, lunch, dinner, snack. And I'm going to show you some other ways that you could use these pages, but like you can white that out and not use it if you don't want to plan meals. But if you do, this is a good way to just sit down every Sunday and think, okay, what am I going to eat? Pull from your list. You could even go ahead and freeze some of these meals for yourself, get it all prepped. Know that, okay, Thursday is my big writing day. I need to do 7 sprints. I got to write for 3.5 hours. So I'm just going to treat myself by ordering Uber Eats or by having something like a lasagna that's already frozen and ready to go that I can just pop in the oven and it's done. So planning that ahead of time can be super helpful for eliminating those decisions, especially if you live in a household where you just every night are like, what are we going to do for dinner? And it's back and forth, which can really start to drain you. Or you live in a household like I do with picky kids and it becomes a nightly, WrestleMania to figure out what they're going to eat. Pre-planning saves the day. Then as we get into the next section, this is all about the novel prep. And so if you're doing something that's not a novel, you probably won't need these pages, but this can help you whether you're a pantser or a plotter or somewhere in between. And we're going to have our next video coming up. It's going to be all about how to find your ideal writing process, which I have never done a video on this before, and I'm excited for it because I'm a plotter and these sheets coming up are much more geared towards somebody who wants to plot out and outline what's happening in their story, but not everybody wants to do that. And that's totally fine too. Just embrace your own. I think I said it like 12 times in this video, so you guys get it, but embrace your own process. Give yourself permission to do that. But even if you are a pantser, some of these brainstorm sheets might be helpful for you. So what genres do you like to read and watch? What do you love about them? List multiple things that you're thinking of writing for this challenge. List some movies, some TV series, books you've loved in this genre. What elements of these things that you wrote about do you find interesting and exciting? Just allowing yourself to think back to, oh yeah, I loved that movie. Why did I love that movie? Or why have I just been reading this kind of book all the time? What is it I love about that? That might spark the idea of what you want to write. And I know that for so many people in this audience, you are often paralyzed by this part of the decision-making process. So I would just tell yourself, if you can, that this is no pressure. This is a chance in the month of October and November to prep for a story that just feels really fun to you. No pressure. You don't have to decide yet what you're doing with that story. If it's not the right decision or the best possible choice, that's okay too. But go through these planning process, like brainstorm process pages, and find something that just seems interesting. And if you follow your own joy and your own interest, you're going to land on something that will be fun for you to write, that will probably also be marketable. Okay. Favorite main characters of all time. What did you love most about them? Then you can pull some of those elements into your own story. Make a list of villains or conflicts that you thought were great. Do you love end of the world kind of stories? Do you love morally gray characters? Do you love villains who are misunderstood? Like all of these things. What about the setting, time period, a place? Like if you've been doing nothing but binge watching period films that are set and have this vibe about them, maybe you want to write something that's set in the past or a different time period. What about the main POV character of your story? Can you see anything about them? Can you already imagine some of their dialogue? Just go ahead and get all of this down on the page. The tone of your story, the side characters you want to write, the central conflict. This is really just a place to brainstorm. What my friend Angela, you guys know Angela, she calls it noodling. You're just noodling here. Any specific settings that this story might take place in, and it doesn't just have to be like, oh, it's setting in Chicago, but like, what's the house your character lives in? What does her bedroom look like? Is she in a castle? Does a lot of this take place in a classroom? Is there anything you know about the setting in terms of a micro setting as well as a macro setting? How does your story open? Is there an opening scene you've been thinking about? How does the story end? Because sometimes imagining the end of the story and the resonance and the impact or the cliffhanger can get you excited for what else is going to come. And then you have a page to brainstorm what else you know about it. So these brainstorming pages are really kind of helpful for anybody who wants to have a place to store your ideas. Then we get into a very quick and dirty outline. This is not super specific, but it gives you a place to put down some of the things you know. The working title, the basic premise, like what is the setup of this? What's the hook of this story? What are we exploring in the story? Who's the main character, the side characters, the villain, the main conflict, and the resolution. So this is just super, super high level plot. Then give yourself a place to list up to 10 possible scenes. So you could go ahead and list out a bunch of scenes, and then you can start placing them in order. Oh, this one has to happen before this one, and so on, so that you get at least a little bit down of what you can see happening in your story, so that later in the month of November, if you get really stuck, you can come back to this and say, oh yeah, I forgot I was going to write a scene where she has this conversation and realizes he's an alien, whatever it is. This will give you a place to store those ideas. Now we get into several pages that are much more detailed in terms of an outline and a plot. If you want to see a full way of how I would fill this out, I have a video from, I think it was last year, about how I use this to outline a novel. So I will link that down below, because it would be an hour-and-a-half video if we go over everything here. But basically, this first page is everything that typically happens in the first act, the first half of the second act, the second half of the second act, and the third act. And it just gets a lot more detailed, like, who is your main character at the beginning? What's their normal world? What is the opening scene that hooks the reader? What's the dramatic question that's going to be asked? Like, will she save her sister? Will she escape from the kidnappers? Will these two people find love? What is the dramatic question that your story aims to answer? And so on. The inciting incident, the first doorway of no return. How does your main character respond to it? And so on. What's the midpoint? What's your response to the midpoint, the new plan, all of that. This can be super helpful if you are just learning story structure and you want a way to just sort of brainstorm. When I fill this out, I don't ever have every single detail figured out before I start writing. I am somebody, we'll talk about this in the next video, that is more of a puzzler, where I might know this ending scene. I might know what this all is lost moment is. I might know the mirror moment and the beginning, but I might not know a lot of stuff in between. But I can start writing with some of those main pieces put together, and then I might write out of order. Like, as I'm writing the beginning, I might get stuck. And so I'll go back and write the ending, and then I'll figure out what happens in the middle based on that ending. And it is kind of like putting together a puzzle rather than just writing in a linear fashion. Some people are very linear writers. And so use this if you can use it. You might want to use a different plotting method than this, which is kind of a mashup of different pieces of third act story structure. You might want to use something like Romancing the Beat. If you're writing romance, highly recommend that. But check out different parts of plotting, or skip that entirely if you don't like to plot. Another even more granular piece of this particular planner is the scene by scene section. So I like to use just traditional 3x5 index cards to write out my scenes. And my scene cards will look kind of like this block down at the bottom. I write an overview of what happens in the scene. Harper sees Jackson for the first time. Who's the POV character? You don't necessarily need who they are if you only have one POV character, but I often write between 4 and 8 point of view characters. So I will put their name on here. And also, what is your character aiming for in this scene? What's their goal? So it could be that Harper wants to get information about the mysterious house in the scene. That's her goal. She wants to find out more information. But then, what is the conflict? What is keeping her from getting this information? It could be, I'm just making stuff up on the fly, but it could be like, oh, the person that she's talking to is lying to her and she knows it. So she can't get good information because this person is lying and she wants to know why. What's the outcome? How does the scene end? Like, what goes wrong or what changes about the story? So maybe something that this person told her that she knew was a lie now leads her down a different path of investigation. And basically, if you can begin to fill this out where you have the character's goal, what's the conflict, and how does it end, you can start to daisy chain your scenes on these index cards by saying, well, here's how it ends. Now she's on a new path. So what does she do now? What does she do to investigate that problem? Or how does she confront the liar? And now I've got a new scene. And then how does that one end? For some people, writing out details like this makes it where they just can't write their story because it's like, I've already written it. My brain won't continue. So what I encourage you to do during this Preptober, if you don't know your writing process, first, subscribe so you can get my next video on how to determine your best writing process, but also experiment with some things. Try some stuff out. See if it works for you. Try making a single scene card. And when you start writing, does it help you get into flow or does it hinder you? And just allow yourself to feel what you feel and keep going, either leaning into it or discarding it as a tool. When I'm brainstorming scenes, here's the steps that I follow. And I do have an entire series and workbook about scenes here on YouTube. So I will link that for you down below as well. Then we have the creativity toolbox, because this whole next section, these last 3 pages of the Preptober part are really all about when you need a boost, because 30 days of focused effort, you're going to hit a point where you have a lull or you feel unmotivated or you feel like things are stuck. So if you hit that point, having planned out what you're going to do, what's your contingency plan, can be super helpful. So for example, think about simple things that make you feel good that you can do right before your writing ritual. So it could be a really beautiful glass of sparkling lemon water in your wine glass every morning. It could be going outside for a walk. It could be a special rough draft challenge playlist or getting on the treadmill. It could be your best cozy socks, your favorite candle. What are some simple things that make you feel more creative? That way you can go ahead and set your space up for maximum success. Also, keep in mind last week's video where I was talking specifically about like prepping your space and your environment also means, do you thrive in a messy desk or a clean desk? Do you have a specific place in your home or at a favorite cafe where you like to write? Set yourself up ahead of time so that you already are basically at your max like potential with that. Then you might have already listed out some bigger rewards, but we have another rewards brainstorm here because for some people, having to wait until that 20,000 words can just start to feel like, oh, I'm never going to get there. And so you're not actually getting those rewards because they're too far spread apart. So you might think about doing 30 small rewards, or if you said you were going to write 24 days this month, give yourself 24 rewards. So it could be something like 30 Hershey's Kisses, or it could be $1 per day for every day you write, or it could be, okay, every day when I finish my writing, or I finish 2 sprints, I'm going to reward myself with a glass of my favorite cherished tea. And just think of those daily things that you can do to sort of romanticize your writing life and make it really fun. It could be Zoom calls with friends. It could be any of that, which is also where we come into this emergency motivation page. So at some point in the month, if you get to a point where you're like, I just want to quit, this isn't working, I feel like I'm so far behind, I'm a failure, like whatever, if you're getting really down on yourself and you just want to quit mid-month, that's normal. Most of us go through this. I hit a point in the midpoint of every book where I fall on the floor or on the bed and say, this is the worst book I've ever written. And at this point, my husband, George, laughs at me because he's like, oh, you must be halfway through, because he's so used to me feeling like it's terrible at that point. So if you hit that point, have some emergency plan in place. Like, okay, when I get to this point, I'm going to sit and play my favorite video game. So when I was writing my zombie series, Eternal Sorrows, whenever I would get to that point, I would call my sister and say, let's play Left 4 Dead. And we would get on and we would fight zombies for the next 2 hours. And inevitably, when I was done with that, I felt inspired to get back to my zombie story. And so if you have, your movies, your anime, the games you like to play, the books you love to read, the authors that are your go-to authors in the genre, those can be important in getting you back into the mood. So instead of writing today, I'm going to read this old favorite book that I love, that was what made me want to write this story in the first place. Emergency motivation could also be, okay, when I hit this point, I'm going to call my best friend and we're going to get on a Zoom call and we're going to write for the next hour. Or I'm going to go into the Heart Breathings writing community. I'm going to say, who wants to help hold me accountable? But having some way where you don't allow yourself to quit can be important. And that's it. You made it. You are ready for the Rough Draft Challenge. That is the prep part of the planner. And like I said, take what works for you, abandon the rest. It's totally fine. Plan as much as you feel you need to in order to set yourself up for success in November. There's some links here as well as the writing sprints group and things like that. And then we move into the actual November planner for the Rough Draft Challenge, which I love. First page up here is this page where you have the full month. So November starts on a Saturday. You've got, this is the Sunday start version of the planner. You do have 50 boxes around the edge that you can use to color in every time you hit a goal. And if you're only doing 25, you can just cover these others with washi tape. If you're doing 100, you could draw out more boxes if you want. The way that I use this particular monthly calendar, you can set it up any way you want, but the way I use it is at the top is my daily word count. And at the bottom, I put how many words so far. So this is my monthly total. So if I wrote, let's say on day 7, I wrote 1,022 words. That's my daily total. But so far, out of all 7 days, let's say I've written 8,210. So there I can see at a quick glance, not only what my daily totals are each day, but also that full monthly total as I'm working my way up to the 50,000. Another way that you could do this is you could write your monthly total at the top. And then at the bottom, you could write how much is left to go. So like for day 1, you might be at 100 words, but your goal was, let's say 10,000. So now you have 9,900 left to go. That way, as you get through to, let's say, past the 15th, you're past the halfway mark, and that might start to look like I've written 5,600, and now I only have 4,400 to go. And that will start to count down at the bottom as the top fills up. So just think about how you want to use it and stay consistent. Then we move into the actual challenge planner. So the first few days, of course, are the grayed out days of September, but you can use that for the last few days of the month. Then Saturday the 1st, you can write out your meal plan at the top and a schedule at the bottom. And actually, I have in this letter size version, I was kind of playing around. Hold on. I'll just swap these out for a second, but I was kind of playing around with ideas of how to use these pages. So I will kind of share with you what this looks like. I just want to make sure it's lined up on the camera so you can see it. So this is kind of how I typically will use it. If you are someone who wants to use the meal planning, it might look something like this: a to-do list for the week over here, or it could be a pep talk or your favorite quote or some stickers. Then what you're going to eat for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snack, so that you have all that decided before the week begins. And then you've got a section for your schedule. So here I just took a highlighter and marked which chapter and how many words I want to write, what my schedule is for the day. And then I also highlighted when I can write today, because you could fill this out day by day, or you could fill it all out like on Sunday or all out ahead of time before the month begins. Then when you wake up that day, you say, okay, I got to write at 8 p.m. today. And you're pre-setting your mind up for success in that way. On this other back of it, I played around with different ways that you might set it up. So let's say you are not a meal planner, you don't want to do that. Just a little bit of corrective tape or some stickers, and that is gone from the page. But I used these pretty stickers to put at the top, what is my writing for the day? And at the bottom, what's either my to-do list or my schedule. So here I've got chapter 2, 1,300 words, and I want to read through chapter 1 first, and I want to get 4 sprints done, and here's where I'm going to do it. Or in this example, you could actually write out what scenes you want to write, although there is room for that over here that I'll show you in a second. You could actually be tracking your word count here, especially if you don't like using a daily page. You could also put any rest days here. At the bottom, here's an example of if I wanted to put my times of my daily schedule here. This one is more of a to-do list, like, oh, I got to do laundry, I got to pick up the groceries, I got to answer my emails, but this is when I'm going to write. Or another version of a to-do list where you have when you're going to write here, and then just different ways to use stickers. So kind of put a little thought into it before you get started to see, how best do I want to use this planner? Do I feel like this would be good for me, or am I already doing this in my regular daily planner? Here's an example of the daily page as well. So at the top, because November 3rd, we have 27 days remaining. At the top, you put in what is your beginning word count and how many words do you have left to write. So this is the number of words you wrote on November 1st and 2nd or so far in the month. So when you wake up on the 3rd, here's how many words you have. Here's how many words to go if you had, let's say, a 30,000 word goal. You can write out what your attention is for the day. Okay, today I got to focus on this. I really want to work on this. Just a brain dump of what you want to do. There's also a place to write out a checklist of what scenes you want to write. Again, if you are a pantser, sometimes pantsers will write stuff like this out on a sticky note or whatever. Sometimes they won't. So if you don't need to use this, you can use it for anything, a daily quote, get creative. You could also use this instead of scenes to write. You could use this as a checklist of the things you did write for the day. This is also a place where you would write your word count tracker. So 2642 is the beginning. Then you wrote 372 and ended up with 3,267 on the second sprint, 231, 444. So you got your 4 sprints done and you ended up with 3956 for the day, which goes into your new monthly total, which then when you come to this day here, you put that at the beginning words for day 4. There's also a place to mark what your mood is for the day so that if you want some data later as you come back and you say, how did I feel on these days when I was writing 10,000 words? Was I super burned out? Was I excited? Was I stressed? And you can plan accordingly better for next week or next challenge. What are you loving about the story and what's your daily wrap up? Like today I finished chapter 2, but tomorrow I want to work on this. So daily word count total here, monthly total on the other side. And that is the majority of this rough draft challenge planner. There is another page here that is a wrap up page for the week. So once you get to Sunday, there's a weekly wrap up where you can say, how did I feel about the past week? What were my word count totals for each day and the total for the week? What are any notes about what I'm going to write next week or anything else that I want to make notes on, like how I'm feeling? Oh, I feel like I'm starting to come down with something. I'm going to take it a little easier next week, or I'm going to adjust my goal. Because with the rough draft challenge, you can actually adjust your goal at any time. So if you said it was going to be 25, but you seem to be blowing that out of the water, you can raise it to 50. If you started with 50 and you can't get it done, lower it to 25. There's no rules there. Story problems I'm thinking through can just be something to give your mind, your subconscious mind, something to noodle on while you sleep or while you're at the treadmill or while you're walking or cooking dinner. What are your intentions for next week? Okay, next week I'm going to write 10,000 words so I can stay on track, et cetera, et cetera. But it just kind of keeps you connected to what your goals were for the challenge. At the very back, you do have a challenge wrap-up page where you can put what were my total words for the month? What were my average words per day? How do I feel now the month is complete? What worked great this year during the challenge? What didn't work? What's my highest day, my lowest day, my best memory, and what I'm most proud of? And then what are my intentions for this book? Maybe you still have 30,000 words to write. Maybe you're ready to start editing it. Maybe you're going to start querying agents, or maybe you're going to self-publish it, but maybe have a little spot there. And this becomes a good little memory keeper of how the month went as well. Then we have wrap-up pages. So there's 2 pages here that while the story is fresh, once you finish the month, you can write down any major changes, edits, updates you want to make. If your novel isn't finished, but you need a break over the holidays in December, write as many notes as you can to give yourself clarity for when you come back in January or February to work on it. I will say, as I was going through this, I realized that I had some extra space here, and this is what was in the challenge planner. So I'm going to fix that and re-upload it. So if it doesn't bother you, just wipe those out. But if you already printed it and you don't like this, just know it's fixed so you can go download it again. I apologize. There's always going to be a few mistakes here and there. But this is your word count tracker, and there's enough for 200 sprints in here if you want to use sprints. The way that you use this is you have a column for this sprint, like this 30 minutes, how did you do? The total for the day so far, and the monthly total. So I'm just going to give you an example as if we're already on sprint number 26 and all these are filled out. So let's say I'm starting the day and it's a random Tuesday. I usually will mark Tuesday, or I'll say like, oh, today is 11/10. It's the 10th. I'll write my 30 minutes and then record it here. So let's say it was 250 words this sprint, but so far in the month, I'm at 12,500 so far for the month. Today's total so far is just going to be 250 in this first one. But let's say I do another sprint today and I get 600 words. Well, now I'm at 850 for the day, but I'm at now 13,100 for the month so far. And so this gives you at a glance as you go through the month an idea of how you're doing on average each sprint, each day, and so far in the month. And then I usually will mark out where the day begins and ends. So let's say I had another 300 and then a 100 here, and then another 400 sprint here. I would usually come in and highlight this box here so that I have my total. So that's another 800 words. So that's 1650 for the day. So that by the time I'm looking at this later, I'll have a few ones that are highlighted and I can see at a glance what was my daily total for most of the days that I wrote. Lots of different ways that you can use this. And these pages are available in the word count tracker section of the resource library too. Okay, a couple more sheets and we're done. Target word count goals. This is just another way to track your progress. And again, there are, I think when I adjusted some other things, I accidentally added some extra space. So again, if you get it today, this will be fixed. But you have a chance if you have a 50,000 word goal and you're planning to write an average amount per day, this is the sheet that you would use. And you would say, how many words did you actually write for the day? And then whether you're ahead or behind this goal. Then you've got the total that you should be at so far for this day of the month. What's your total in comparison? And if you're above or below, like are you on track or not? And any notes that you want to keep throughout the month. But we don't all have a 50,000 word goal. So if you have a different target goal, you can set up this other page to be a custom target per day. So instead of having it be the same target every day, you might, like I said, be writing more on weekends. So you might have 1,000 word target, but then when it hits the weekend, you have a 5,000 word target on Saturdays. So you can set that up to track your progress. Then we have a pixel tracker. This is inspired by Sarah McLean, who I finally got to meet this year in Australia. She's incredible, but she uses a thing like this, I think, in her bullet journal, where each one represents 100 words, and there's enough here for 50,000 words. Each strip here is 1,000, and she will color in every 100 words. So if she wrote 300 words, she gets to fill in 3 of these and so on. And so it's just another visual way to track your progress. And of course, if you're only doing 25 words, you can just put a sticker here or you can figure out how many you want to do. And then finally, we have the Rough Draft Challenge game board, and you can literally just take a little game piece and mark which day you're on. One way you could use this is if you have that target word count goal for the day, you could go through and mark them all here so that you know, okay, this day I should be at 2,000. This day I should be at 4,000. And you can mark your day once you hit that word count, or you can leave this blank. And then as you hit day 3, you put your little marker on here. And at the end of the day, you come in and write how many words you wrote that day and then move it to the next day. And then, visually you make it to the end at 30 days. And then we just have a couple of notes pages and another quote and a backing page, and that is it. All right, we've got it. So hopefully you've been filling out your own goals as we go. Rough Draft Challenge starts November 1st, but the entire month of October is going to be spent in what we call Preptober, where we're going to be going through not really the sheets in here exactly, but we're going to have lots of videos here about how to find your ideal writing process, how to write your novel using index cards and scene cards, how to write faster if you'd like to write faster, how to get over fear. I'm going to post as many videos as I can potentially do in this month getting ready for Preptober. And I just cannot wait to spend this month with you. So again, if you are not subscribed to this channel, definitely hit that subscribe button. I am so very grateful to all of you for 80,000 subscribers. So hit that subscribe button, and thank you to everyone who has been subscribed here for a while. And this is not your first Preptober with me. If you have made it to the end of this video, by the way, please put a pink, red, yellow, blue, whatever your heart is for which tier you're going for. Or if you don't know, put a diamond or your favorite writerly emoji down at the bottom. So I know you made it this far into the video. There's also going to be a few giveaways coming up throughout the month, and I just am so excited for it. And I hope that you are too. I really and truly hope that this provides not only an escape for you, but also an opportunity to just allow yourself to marinate in your own creativity and have some fun and feel rejuvenated and excited for the work that you're putting out in the world, because your voice matters, your story matters, and it's important to allow yourself this time to just really be creative without stress. So pick your goal, decide your project, get into prep, print out your planner. Again, that link to download it is in the description box below. And let's get started on Preptober. I super love you guys, and I will see you in my next video all about the writing process. All right, see you then. Bye.